Welcome students, this is the second lecture of our series that you will find on TV and online. I'd like to continue where I left off earlier. We spoke about, the last thing we spoke about was the grammatical morphemes, and now we will have a look at negation. Page 9, please. Negation. There's a few lines just above negation, if you could follow. The acquisition of other language features. So we had a look at the grammatical morphemes and how they are similar between children. At different ages, they learn at different ages, but the sequence is still similar. Now we will look at other features of how children's languages develop systematically and how they go beyond what they have heard to create new forms and structures. This will bring us to negation now. Please follow the paragraph on page 9. Children learn the functions of negation very early. So it's one of the first things that children learn. That is, they learn to comment on the disappearance of objects. When something goes missing, they learn to comment on that. Or refuse a suggestion. When you tell them to do something or you want them to do something, they can refuse. Or reject an assertion. When they are being told to do something, they reject it. Even at single word stage. Even when they are using just the one word. No. However, as Lois Bloom's 1991 longitudinal studies show, even though children understand these functions and express them with single words and gestures, even though children have a good understanding of these functions, like the negation, and express them with single words and gestures, and they only use one word, it takes some time before they can express them in sentences. They use the one word in a negation, but they will need a lot more time to put this in a sentence. Single words into sentences. It takes some time before they express them in sentences using the appropriate words and word order. In a single sentence where they can use the correct word and the correct word order. The following stages in the development of negation have been observed. Now, when it comes to negation or the negatives, there have been stages that have been observed in the acquisition of English. Similar stages have been observed in other languages as well. So we have English learning, and now we're looking at negation or the negative, how children learn it. What are the developmental sequences, like we did with the grammatical morphemes. If you remember, children learn the last on the list, automatically they know the ones at the top of the list, and the reverse is not true. So we want to see what are the stages that children learn negation. But we know that the first stage is obviously going to be one word, as mentioned earlier. Now, stage 1. Negation is usually expressed by the word no. Either all alone, either on its own, or as the first word in an utterance, or as a first word in an utterance, first word in a sentence. No, no cookie, no dumb, no comb, hair, no comb, hair. Stage 2. Utterances grow longer. They become longer, and the sentence subject may be included. We might have a subject. The negative word appears just before the verb, and the negative word appears just before the verb. Sentences expressing rejection or prohibition often use don't. And if they want a sentence that expresses rejection or prohibition, they often use don't. Daddy, no comb hair, don't touch that. All right. Now we come to stage 3. Excuse me. The negative element is inserted into more complex sentences. The negative element, whatever it is that you want to use for the negation, is inserted into a more complex sentence. Now the sentences are getting longer and more complex the further we go. Children may add forms of the negative other than no. Children here, they might use something other than no, including words like can't and don't. ما يشمل كلمات can't و don't. These sentences appear to follow the correct English pattern of attaching the negative to the auxiliary or modal verb. And these sentences, they seem to be following the correct rules for attaching negatives to the auxiliary or modal verb. However, children do not yet vary these forms for different persons or tenses. They do not change them for different persons or tenses. I can't do it. He don't want it. There are still some problems. Stage 4. Children begin to attach the negative element to the correct form of the auxiliary verb. Such as do and be. Now in stage 4, children actually know how to use the auxiliary verb in the correct way. In the correct way, اللي هو do and be. Now we have stage. All right, that's it. Okay, you didn't have supper. She doesn't want it. Even though their language system is by now quite complex, they may still have difficulty with some other features related to negatives. I don't have no more candies. The double negative still causes some problems and might take a little bit longer to get used to, with a little bit more practice for children to perfect it. But these are the stages of negation. All right, we have the stages of negation. So we can say, use black is better. Negation. Stage 1. Use of single word. هي شنو كلمة? What is it? They use no. That's what we said. The use of a single word. No cookie, no comb hair. Stage 2. Utterances. Say we can, for example, مثلا no cookie. All right, and we have it's stage 2. Utterances grow longer and the sentence subject may be included. These, what we can say here is utterances are longer. Utterances are longer. Subject included. Utterances are longer, subjects included. Daddy no comb hair. Example. Daddy no comb hair. Now we come to stage 3. The negative element is inserted into more complex sentences. So at stage 3, we have more complex sentences. Stage 3, we have more complex sentences and use the use of can't and don't. Yes, can't and don't. Can't plus don't. All right, that's stage 3. Stage 3. Now, stage 4. Children begin to attach the negative element to the correct form of the auxiliary verbs. Stage 4, what can I write? Stage 4. All right, let's do this. Stage 4, the correct form of the auxiliary verbs. Use of the correct form of the auxiliary verbs. All right, and now last but not least, oh no, that's stage 4, yes, okay, that's the last one. That is stage 4. So once you have a look at the different stages, and you can recognize in each stage what the children actually use. And as you can see, it starts off with being very, very simple, and then it gets more and more complex, and yet there is a lot more complexity to come in order for them to completely understand and use the negation correctly. Now, another element we're going to look at is questions. If you turn to page 10, please, and if you could follow. The challenge of learning complex language systems is also illustrated in the developmental stages through which children learn to ask questions. We see from negation that they start by using single words, simple. Maybe we can derive from that probably something similar or along the same lines will happen in the questions, and that they probably learn by one word, and then as they get better and better, they'll put more complex sentences together. Let's see. Now, there is a remarkable consistency in the way children, second paragraph, all right? There is a remarkable consistency in the way children learn to form questions in English. A remarkable consistency, all right? It means, what that means is children all across the board have the same way in which they are learning questions. Remarkable consistency. For one thing, there is a predictable order. Predictable order, ترتيب يمكن التنبؤ به, predictable, in which the WH words emerge. عندنا order or predictable order for WH words ولا question words. زي ما قال Bloom in 1991. What is generally the first WH question word to be used? What is the first word to be used? It is often learned as part of a chunk. What? And it is, what does it mean, part of a chunk? Ooh, nice word, chunk. A chunk. A chunk is a large body of something. كتلة من, a chunk of. It means something that is all together. And why they use the word chunk when it comes to children's learning is, and especially when it comes to the word what, is children will always hear, what's this? What's that? What are you doing? These are very, very similar or very frequently repeated sounds that children hear. So at this early stage, the child sees what is that as a chunk. What's that? For a child, this all together is one word. The child does not yet have the capacity or the ability to understand that this consists of what and is and that. For the child, this is all one word, and he's learned it as a chunk. Hence, why what for the children, and when they learn it as part of a group. At this early stage, they still don't know that what is a separate word. And chunk of wasat, what is that? And it is some time before the children learn that there are variations of the form. And it takes them even longer to understand that there are variations, tanawwa, of the form, such as what is that and what are these. Now, where and who emerge very soon. First we have what, learned it as a chunk, ككتلة مع بعضها كلها what's. Then the second ones we have where and who. Where, always looking for the toys, looking for food, looking for drink. Where is my car? Where is my toy? Where is my juice? And who? Who's this? Who's that? Identifying and locating people. They want to identify and locate. They want to know who that person is and where they are. And objects within, and objects obviously as well, are within the child's understanding of the world. Where do all these things fall within the child's world? When they understand the world. Furthermore, adults tend to ask children just these types of questions when they're young children. You can notice it yourself as well. You always ask simple questions to young children because you don't want to use complex sentences that they don't understand. These questions in the early days of language learning, for example, where is mommy? Who's that? Where is daddy? Where is your toys? What's that? What's this? Then why emerges around the end of the second year, when they are nearly at the end of the second year. Why emerges and becomes a favorite. You know what happens when they learn the word why? Everything is why. Why is this color blue? Why is that car going fast? Why is this man wearing blue jeans? Why is that girl running fast? I will use this question so much, you probably get annoyed, but that's children for you. They like to understand everything. Children seem to ask an endless number of questions. Endless number of questions beginning with why. This is when the stage when children start to become a bit annoying. I'm only kidding. Having discovered how effectively this little words gets adults to engage in conversation. Why is this become a favorite for children? Because they understand. As soon as I said why, I am being engaged in the conversation and the adult is explaining all of this stuff to me. They know that this word has some kind of magic hold on the person you are speaking to. They are able to talk to you. If you say why, they will talk to you a lot. If you use any other words, it will be a short sentence. So children know this, and they start to use it a lot and a lot, so they'll ask so many questions. For example, why that lady has blue hair? Finally, when the child has a better understanding of manner and time. And the child has a better understanding of manner and time. Remember, previously we said that children at this early stages, they still don't know the concept or the idea of time of last week and yesterday and tomorrow. They live in the present only. Manner and time, how and when emerge. When they understand manner and time, how and when emerge. In contrast to what and where, and they're against, or in contrast to what and where and who questions. Children sometimes ask the more cognitively difficult why. Sometimes children will choose to ask the more difficult question why, when and how, without understanding the answers they get. Yes, they will ask you a question using when, why, or how, but you give them the answer, they still don't know what you are talking about because there are some elements, some aspects they still haven't learned yet. As the following conversation with a 4-year-old clearly shows. We have a conversation with a 4-year-old and he will show you that they don't always understand the questions they ask. The child, when can we go outside? Parent, in about 5 minutes. The child, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can we go now? See, the child does not really have an understanding of time as of yet. He thinks 5 minutes, that he should count to 5. The ability to use question words is at least partly tied to the children's cognitive development. So for the children to be able to use these words, this has a relationship with their cognitive development, نمو الذهني. It is also predicted in part, where you can also predict, you can tell, or you can have a guess at what's going to happen next. Predicted in part by questions children are asked. Part of it you can predict by the questions that children are asking, and the linguistic complexity of the questions and how complex are the questions. With different WH words. Thus, it does not seem surprising that there is consistency in the sequence of their acquisition. Therefore, it's not surprising that there is consistency in the sequence of their acquisition. Perhaps more surprising is the consistency in the acquisition of word order in the questions. This is more surprising. The consistency of the word order in the questions. This development is not based on learning new meanings. تطور هذا الأساس متاعه مش تعلم معاني جديدة. But rather on learning different linguistic patterns. تعلم الآن أنماط لغوية مختلفة. Different linguistic patterns. To express meanings that are already understood. تعبر عن معنى you already understand. All right. Now, let's have a look at the different stages of questions. Let's have a look at the different stages of questions. Stage 1. Children's earliest questions are single words. Pretty much the same as questions, yeah? Pretty much the same as negation. They use single words. Try to tie things together. Maybe it will be easier for you to remember the two. Or compare the negation and questions. Stage 1. In the questions, children's earliest questions are single words or simple 2 or 3 word sentences with rising intonation. Rising intonation. Cookie, mommy book. At the same time, they may produce some correct questions, correct because they have been learned as chunks. They've been learned as chunks. Where is daddy? What's that? Who's this? And so on. Stage 2. As they begin to ask more new questions, children use the word order of the declarative sentence with rising intonation. Now they are learning, they want to ask more new questions. Children will use the word order of the declarative sentence. You like this? I have some. They continue to produce the correct chunk learned from form, the correct chunk learned form, such as, what's that? Alongside their own created questions, alongside or even with their own questions that they have created themselves. Stage 3, gradually children notice that the structure of questions is different and begin to produce questions such as, in stage 3, children now learn that the structure of a question is different. You make a question by putting something at the beginning of the sentence. Now I see. So now they start to use the correct structure. Can I go? Are you happy? I'll go back to stage 2. Just a quick point. If you realize stage 2, the examples, you like this and I have some. In stage 2, the children are just using normal sentences. All they're doing is putting a question mark at the end of it. You like this? I have some. They change that normal sentence into a question by adding question mark. In stage 3, now they know that there is a correct structure. You have to put the question word at the beginning of the sentences. Although some questions at this stage match the adult pattern, they may be right for the wrong reasons. Some of these at this stage, the questions can be correct, just like the adult, but they can be correct for the wrong reason. To describe this, we need to see the pattern from the child's perspective. We need to have a look from the child's perspective and not from an adult point of view. You need to put yourself in the children's feet or children's shoes so you can understand why. From the child's perspective rather than the perspective of the adult grammar. We call this stage fronting. نسمى هذه المرحلة بfronting. Fronting جاية من in front of. Because the child's rule seems to be that questions are formed by putting something, a verb or question word, at the front of a sentence, leaving the rest of the sentence in its statement form. وخلي باقي الجملة, leave the rest of the sentence as it is. يعني, why do they call it fronting? Because at this stage, children learn that they have to put something, a verb or a question word, in front of. That's why it's called fronting. Sometimes it can be correct, but a lot of the times it can be wrong, as we can see here. Is the teddy is tired? Do I can have a cookie? Do you see now? The sentences here are just normal statement. It's in a statement form. All the child did was put the question word at the beginning of the sentence. So, if you take the first is out, it becomes the teddy is tired. It's a statement. Take the do. I can have a cookie. Take the why. You don't have one. These are all statements. At this stage, they understand that you have to put something at the beginning. Stage 4. Stage 4, some questions are formed. Some questions are formed, are made. Are formed by subject auxiliary inversion عن طريق or by using the inversion of the subject auxiliary. The questions resemble those of stage 3. They're very similar to the ones in stage 3, but there is more variety in the auxiliaries. ويوجد تنوع أكثر في auxiliaries that appear before the subject, اللي هي موجودة قبل الفاعل or before the subject. Are you going to play with me? At this stage, children can even add do in the questions, in which there would be no auxiliary in the declarative version of the sentence. At this stage, they can probably use do. Do dogs like ice cream? Even at this stage, however, children seem able to use either inversion or WH word, but not both. For example, is he crying, but not why is he crying? Even at this stage, remember that children are able to use either inversion or a WH, but not both. So he will say, is he crying, but not why is he crying? All right, now, therefore, we may find inversion in yes-no questions, but not in WH questions. So the inversion at this stage is children will use in yes-no questions, but not in WH questions, unless they are formulaic units such as what's that. Stage 5. At stage 5, both WH and yes-no questions are formed correctly. At stage 5, WH questions and yes-no questions are both performed correctly. Are these your boots? Why did you do that? Does daddy have a box? Does daddy have a box? Negative questions may still be a bit too difficult. Why the teddy bear can't go outside? And even though performance on most questions is correct, برغم أن الأداء على معظم الأسئلة صحيح, there is still one hurdle. حاجز. When WH words appear in the subordinate clauses or embedded questions, children overgeneralize the inverted form. That would be correct for simple questions and produce sentences such as, ask him why can't he go out? Ask him why can't he go out? There are still some problems, even though the performance is good, but there are still some problems to work through. Stage 6. At this stage, children are able to correctly form all question types including negative and complex embedded questions. Negative and complex embedded questions. So stage 6, everything here is fine and correct. Passage through developmental sequences does not always follow a steady, uninterrupted path. These stages, or the passage, المرور من عبر هذه المراحل, does not always follow a straight and uninterrupted path, or ممر أو طريق لا يوجد بها hurdles or issues or problems. Children appear to learn new things and then fall back on old patterns. Children can learn new things, but sometimes they go back to old patterns. How does this happen? When there is added stress in a new situation, when children are under pressure or under stress in a new situation, maybe a new environment with new friends, in a new classroom, this changes them a bit. All right, how? This affects them. In a new situation, or where they are using other new elements in their language. Or if they are getting used a new words, a new structure in the grammar, and they are uncomfortable with it, they haven't learned it yet, what you'll find will happen is sometimes children, even when they reach stage 6, which is they should be able to use questions correctly and have no problems. When they encounter a new situation, i.e., for example, if they are asked to stand up and perform in front of the class, maybe answer the question, or if they moved into a new classroom, they might get a little bit nervous and they will go back to stage 5 or stage 3 or stage 2 and make a mistake. But that's where they feel they are comfortable. Sometimes it's not easy to follow the whole stages. Sometimes children can learn all of them, but go back because of circumstances around them. But overall path takes them towards a closer. But the overall path, the road, usually leads them to the closer approximation of the language that is spoken around them, and the language that is spoken around them. All right, now I want to just go over the different stages of questions. Let's have a look at the different stages on these negations. Let's have a look at the questions. When it comes to negations, questions. Questions. You know what is the first word? Wala la. When it comes in questions, what is generally the first word? And then what did we say? Then we have where and who. Where and who emerge very soon. Identifying and locating where and who. Where and who, identifying and locating. Where and who for identifying and locating. And what do we have after that? Why emerges. Why emerges used a lot by children. And then finally, when a child has a better understanding of time, better understanding manner and time, how and when emerge. And then finally, when children understand manner and time. How and when, yeah? Is it? Yep. How and when are used. How and when are used. Okay, now, and then yes, we have the different stages. All right, different stages. Have a look at the different stages. So these are the questions. What we said, excuse me, what is generally the first word? Where and who? In identifying and locating. Where is my toy? Who is this? Who is that? Why emerges, used a lot by children. They know how powerful this word is, and then they start to use it and generalize it. Finally, when children understand manner and time, how and when are used. How and when are used. All right, thank you. We'll stop here today, and I'll see you for the next session. Thank you.